Yes, sir, it's visible.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. Um, Today's topic on protection system. We are going to discuss application of generator protection and transformer protection to deal with abnormal operating condition in power system. And tomorrow's session will look at similar how the application of transmission line protection and busbar protection will respond for the different operating condition in power system. Basically, we have been running many programs through CBIP on protection, basically generator protection, transformer protection, line protection, etc. But this time we are conducting it in a different perspective. We'll discuss the different abnormal condition of the power system, which could be on account of a fault or it could be due to the particular contingency of the power system, and how the protection system will respond to it. So the way we will look at protection will be from the power system perspective rather than the perspective of the protective relay. So that's the key difference. So let us first talk about some of the abnormal operating condition as well as the power system disturbances. The disturbances are generally classified as, say, due to, say, transmission line congestion, which is due to overload of transmission corridor, or it can be termed as a small signal instability, or it is also called small disturbance angle instability. Many times people who are familiar with the power system operation in the control room, they observe small oscillations in the power. So these oscillations are generally caused by the small signal disturbance, which are not damped out by the system condition. There can be transient instability. We'll talk about it, what is meant by transient instability, which results into either frequency instability, frequency varying fast. It could be due to result into voltage instability, and as a result of cascading effect due to various tripping, you may have overloading of different transmission lines and transformers. So these are generally the types of disturbances what we see. Now, these power system disturbances, if you try to see what causes disturbances and what is the effect of those disturbances. For many of these disturbances, the existing prevailing condition is one of the reasons, and this is either due to certain outages, as we call it n-1 contingency, or contingencies which are more than n-1. That means more than one element remaining out of service, and these sort of multiple outages sometimes can start or initiate the disturbance with any one event happening. Some lines can trip due to fault or some maloperation of the protection relay during such a disturbance, and which result into further disturbance of the propagation of the disturbance, which we call the cascading effect. As the disturbance propagate, we have unbalance into generation, load, reactive power support which is required, and the voltage level at various bus bar. They can vary depending on the reactive support which may not be available. This usually causes, because if there are some right-of-way issues on account of construction of the transmission line, or some maintenance work is taken up on the line, so there can be if the double circuit transmission line corridor is there and both the circuits are then taken out, and it results into diversion of power to other corridors, and it results into system unbalance in terms of the power flow. Such contingencies require sufficient monitoring as well as the remedial action, and these remedial actions are also called, they can be manual and they can be automatic. Automatic remedial action are usually through special protection scheme. These special protection scheme basically are triggered by one of the power system parameter, and it initiates the tripping of some load or transformer, or sometimes even the generators, to ensure the system comes back within the normal operating limits. If the response from the manual intervention or through the SCADA systems and energy management systems, which are there normally in the load dispatch center, may then escalate the disturbance to final convert into a isolation of the region, or it can even lead to complete collapse of the power system. Automated actions, sometimes if they are not available and if they are not initiated, basically what it results into the operating parameters going in the alert region or in the alarm region in terms of the system operating margins which we have in terms of stability, either the voltage instability or the angular instability, and then that causes generators to react to that, and generator tripping would result into then frequency instability. So these are the sort of system disturbances and abnormal operation of power system, resulting into basically variations of MW, MVR, so current, voltage, frequency, etc. And if they are not controlled, you get into grid collapse. So when such a disturbance occurs, what are the responses you see from the protective relays? So you see distance relay operations. Primarily, it is the overreaching of distance relay element. Which are the overreaching distance relay elements? It is either the zone 3 or zone 2. We have phenomena like what we call load encroachment, etc., where though there is no fault, purely because of the temporary overload condition, because of the abnormal operating condition, you get a distance relay operation and tripping the line, which is undesirable. This would also result into overload relays to operate, overcurrent relays, especially if you have the directional and non-directional overcurrent relays either on the lines or on the transformers. They may operate. Under and over voltage protection will operate. Under frequency can result into under frequency trippings, especially the load shedding schemes, as well as the sometimes generator tripping on under frequency. Voltage fluctuation can result in loss of field relay to respond, or if over voltage conditions are persisting, you may also have overfluxing relay, which are resulting into tripping of the ICTs or generator transformers. And if these some of the system conditions are not clear by then its own relays, then you may even get operation of generator relays, which are the backup relay for the unclear system fault. So these are the various sort of occurrences you must have come across, resulting into various protection actions. Usually, unwanted tripping on the distance relay requires the backup zone coordination of the lines as well as backup protection, which is basically in the line protection is given by the zone 3 of the line protection, and this is further coordinated with the generator under impedance protection. So this coordination between generator protection and the transmission network protection becomes critical in such case to avoid generator operation. Now, the first line of defense usually is provided before the protection actions can come in. The first line of action is by various limiters. In the excitation system, you have current limiters, which is basically through a overcurrent, stator overcurrent limiter, or it is a over-excitation limiters. There are under excitation limiters, there are MW, MVR, that is a reactive power or power factor controller, and there are also the load angle controllers on the generator excitation system. The under voltage protection on various lines, various auxiliaries of the generator need to then coordinate so that the corrective action from AVR will take effect, and you don't get unnecessarily tripping due to some large auxiliary like tripping on under voltage. Some of the protections which operated during the 2012 grid collapse in North India, we had seen trippings due to pole slip protection, tripping on backup impedance protection. In few locations, we even had an operation of generator differential during this disturbance. They were tripping due to excitation system, overfluxing, under frequency, loss of excitation, flame failure, possibly due to persistent under voltage on the boiler auxiliaries, some trippings on low power and high and low voltage trippings in the 400 kV network. Now, one of the most important characteristic which needs to be monitored is the capability curve of the generator. This capability curve basically provides the boundary line for operation of the generator in for a given megawatt load. How much should be the reactive power in the overexcited region? Overexcited region is region when you are exporting reactive power, and underexcited region is where you are actually absorbing reactive power from the grid. In these both the zones, the operation is limited within the capability curve, and it is the function of the voltage regulator to limit this excitation in the over excitation zone as well as in the under excitation zone. Now, what are some of the other actions take place? For example, if the system condition is disturbed and the frequency is fluctuating, sometimes there is a over frequency, the governor may change its mode and try to close the control wall to control the frequency. Suppose you have a condition where you have the remote isolation of the region, and then the frequency in the islanded region shoots up, then the turbine controller will try to close the control wall. So what happens is you are actually then cutting off the mechanical input to the generator. If the control wall is partially closed or it is fully closed due to the response from the governing action. Now what will happen to generator? Generator which is connected to the grid, excitation is on, the steam input is reduced or cut off because of the control wall. Generator will go either in the low forward power mode or reverse power mode. So This is one of the system condition where either we trip the generator depending on the what type of generator it is on low forward itself, or we wait for reversal of the power to occur, because generator will then work as a synchronous motor. Now, when the generator is working like a synchronous motor, is it really a harmful condition for the generator in terms of its ability to run? No, because it is still in synchronism. Voltages are still within its voltages, current are still within the limit. But the prime mover, which is the, say, steam turbine, or in case of hydro station, it is, say, your hydro turbine, Francis turbine. There is a condition which can cause damage to the turbine blades of the steam generator, or even there can be cavitation type of problem to the turbines. So this condition becomes more dangerous to the prime mover rather than the generator itself. So in such a disturbed condition, when there is a say islanded condition, frequency fluctuations are very erratic. The governing mode changes from the load control mode to speed control mode. So this can result into system condition where this low forward and reverse power protection becomes very critical. Similarly, there can be situation where generator gets connected to the grid when you are trying to synchronize, or you may get connected to the grid inadvertently, say because of the closing of the generator breaker when you are trying to synchronize it manually rather than by auto synchronizer. So what generally there is a logic in the governors. The moment circuit breaker is closed, you need minimum power to maintain the stability of, especially it is important for the hydro generators, because unless you pick up some minimum power, there can be problem on the hydraulic side, or even for the steam turbine there could be fluctuations on your steam control mode of the turbine as well as the boiler condition, which may again result into lower forward power followed by reverse power condition. So these are various abnormal conditions where the low forward power and reverse power protection can be very useful. Now, there are different ways this abnormal condition can be handled. If you see steam turbine, in the normal operating condition, when generator works as a synchronous motor, the power drawn will be maybe 0.5 to 3% maximum, depending on the type of generator or type of turbine which is driving the generator. So this reverse power relay and low forward relay need to be very sensitive relays, and they are set properly with a good accuracy. Many times the reverse power relays are actually connected into metering class current transformer, so that accuracy of measurement is good. Sometimes this condition also happens during when you trying to take a shutdown of the machine. So during shutdown of the machine, suppose your control valves operation is not completely shutting off the prime mover power because of the leakage through the valves. It can also happen to the hydro inlet valves. So you continue to get a small quantity of prime mover power, which results into continued operation at a low power. So these are all the conditions where we need action from low forward power or the reverse power. So there are different philosophies which utilities use. Sometimes you interlock low forward power and keep the low forward power only for alarm, and in case further operation in motoring mode continues, you trip only after ensuring that complete reversal of power has taken place, so that there is no chance of overspeeding. Because one of the risks is if you open the generator breaker uh, with low forward power, because of prime mover power, which is still not completely removed, you may get a overspeeding condition, which can be avoided by a sequential tripping, low forward power followed by uh, reverse power. The problem can also occur in gas turbines, hydro turbines, as well as the steam turbine, as we discussed. Now, just to have some um, reliability into this protection, there are again different type of scheme we adopt. Uh, Many times you don't get enough reversal of the power to suppose you have low forward power only for alarm, and the reverse power relay is not picking up because the power is not sufficient. Reverse of the power, the quantum is not sufficient. In that case, you will have this sort of condition continuing, and you may land up in higher temperature, especially the turbine exhaust to temperature will go up. So it is also a practice to have a parallel logic which is giving a time delayed backup action. So what is done is your control wall, as far as the wall closing is concerned, the limit switches will give the status, though the control wall might be leaking and steam input may be passing to the turbine. The position of the control wall can be used as a parallel logic with a time delay to cause and initiate the trip on reverse power mode. Similarly, when you operate the control wall, the control oil pressure will drop. So the pressure drop of the control oil can be also taken as one of the input to initiate such a sequential tripping. Turbine flow, steam flow parameters can also be taken for this. This is how you try to make a scheme reliable, because this is something which during abnormal operating condition may not give reliable protection for all operating condition. So you see the typical logic. This is the typical reverse power logic, where you have taken power as one criteria, and you take an additional input as a control wall close as a permissive, or the control fluid pressure as one of the permissive, and this will result into then the reverse power trip. This acts as a backup logic, which is also called sequential trip logic. So this is one type of I would say action from reverse power and low forward power condition during the system disturbance condition, which most type of generators will face. Now the question is, as we have listed in one of the system disturbance, we even had a operation of the differential relay during the system fault condition. Now, why differential relay of a generator? And we'll also talk about differential relay of transformer later on when we talk about the transformer protection. Should operate for a fault which is outside in the grid. Now, here to understand why differential relay action might take place, we should first understand the basic principle of the differential relay. The differential relay basically, suppose this is a generator winding. There is a neutral side CT, there is a phase side CT. Both are connected in such a way that they would, in normal operating condition, these two currents being the same, they cancel each other and no current flows through the relay current element, operating current element. So this is the simple circulating current principle of a differential protection. So what basically is required for stability of this protection is these two currents which are on neutral side and the phase side of the generator are exactly the same. Now, what are the conditions when there can be mismatch which can result into operating current to flow? Now, for transformer, because there is a HT winding, LT winding, there is a tap changer, and there is a possibility of CTs also ratios being different. The mismatch in the characteristic of the HT side CTs and LT side CTs. That is one source of, you can say, current mismatch. But in the generator side, many times, when the faults in the grid take place, what we normally have is a transient and subtransient period of fault currents. Now, when you have transient and subtransient currents, you will always have some sort of a DC offset in the fault current. And this peak current, which is initially experienced with a DC offset, this peak current normally depends on the X by R ratio and the time constant of the transient and subtransient reactances, which will decide how long that sort of decrement of the current will last. Typically, peak currents in the subtransient phase may last for 2 to 3 cycles, and these peak currents, which are having a high DC component, may result into different performance of the, you can say, the transient performance of the current transformer may be unequal, and that can result into operating current to flow. So this is one of the reasons where the CT performance, and of course, one of the design consideration which is always given is that these two CTs are ensured to be of identical type, and their magnetization characteristics are also identical, so that as far as possible you ensure that this transient performance of the CT will also be identical. But one of the reason why sometimes this mismatch take place is the secondary circuit, because this is on the phase side of the generator located in the neutral box, where the spacing of the CTs is different than the spacing of the CTs on the line side, which may be in the bus duct. So the magnetic phenomena coupling the CTs can be different for the phase side and the neutral side. And this mismatch in the transient performance is one of the reasons where especially the high speed differential protection can malfunction. There are ways how to take care of this. We'll discuss that a little later. Now, differential protection, there are again two types. There is a low impedance differential protection, there is a high impedance differential protection. The low impedance differential protection normally ensures stability by what is called percentage bias or restraining characteristics. What is the restraining characteristic? Depending how much is the through fault current, it tries to restrain the operation by increasing the pickup. So this is the slope characteristic. So if you say this is the differential current and this is the operating current, this is the your through fault current. The more the fault current, you can see the operating current which is required for relay to operate increases. So this is a sort of a bias or restraint characteristic to ensure that even for a mismatch on account of high through fault current, or sometimes even in a condition where one of the city may get saturated, the this bias setting will result into stability of the differential protection. If you have high impedance technique, in the high impedance technique, basically what is done is instead of a circulating current principle, here you have a voltage based relay in the differential circuit. The voltage developed in this secondary circuit, which includes the secondary cable, resistance of the CT, this voltage drop basically which is developed due to through fault current. If there is a fault which is beyond the differential protection, the fault current on the secondary side will result into voltage across the relay, and that will drive the current through the operating element of the relay. This relay operating current can be increased by a series resistor. This is called stabilizing resistor. So just like a restraint in low impedance relay, in this protection, what you do is you increase the stabilizing resistor to ensure the stability. So these are the basically two types of differential scheme: high impedance, low impedance, where the stabilizing can be improved to ensure stability. Another reason why sometimes the differential relay operates is you are not getting enough restraining current. Now, when such a situation happens, for example, if there are two circuit breakers on the HT side, you have a double bus bar scheme, and the generator is connected to bus 1 and bus 2, and there are two circuit breakers, and each circuit breaker having its own current transformers. Many times you have paralleling of the CT secondaries and give as a one input to the relay, differential relay. Now, for getting a proper restraining current, it is necessary that there is an exactly identical input on the secondary side to the relay. So it is always preferable that you use a separate restraint coil for each circuit breaker instead of paralleling in the switch yard. So you use then multiple restraint which are available in the modern differential protection, so that instead of paralleling on the secondary side, you connect each CT to different restraining coil in the relay. So this is how some of these issues can be taken care. So this is about differential protection, why it sometimes maloperates for something which is happening in the grid. Similarly, for some of the grid fault, the under impedance protection of the generator can operate for uncleared fault. For some reason, if the line is overloaded due to say the system dynamic condition, when there is a either power swing phenomena, or it is a very voltage instability phenomena causing the overload of the reactive overload on the line. If there are distance relay protection, which is protecting the line, sometimes maloperates, then or it doesn't operate, then the backup impedance relay on the generator may operate. Or if the time coordination between the under impedance relay of the generator and the zone 3 or zone 2 operation of the line, that time coordination is not proper, then it may result into backup impedance relay to operate before the fault is clear on the line side. So usually the backup impedance relay is on the generator is kept with stage 1 and stage 2. So the stage 1 is set to reach up to the step up transformer only. So the impedance setting of the stage 1 doesn't go beyond the generator transformer. So this stage 1 will not operate for anything beyond generator transformer, either if there is a bus fault in the switchyard or even if the unclear line fault, this zone of the generator impedance relay will not act. Now stage 2 is then given reach which is beyond the generator transformer. Now this reach of the stage 2 has to be in terms of the line, how much it can see. You take a longest line, and sometimes from you take the 80% of the longest line and try to cover with a backup impedance of the generator, so that if the line protection for some reason doesn't clear the fault, then generator backup impedance will trip as a grand backup. So this grand backup, which is provided by under impedance relay on the generator, you suitably time coordinate, so that that time for tripping should be then more than zone 3 setting of the line protection. So typically 1.5 seconds or 2 seconds definite time delay is kept on stage 2. So this is the coordination between say generator impedance relay. You can see generator, transformer, these are the lines. So you take generator, which is covering up to the generator transformer 80% of that as a stage 1. Then stage 2 you can go to cover the longest line which you have as an outgoing line from the switcher. So these are the setting guidelines which we have already discussed. Now, for the same situation, another relay which sometimes malfunctions. So this is the line. This is a generating station. This is a generator transformer, and then from the bus bar there is a line. There is a line fault. So we said there is a impedance distance protection on the line. There is a backup impedance on the generator, and they should be coordinated with each other. But there is also a overcurrent earth fault relay which is kept on the generator transformer neutral. This neutral current protection again has to be first coordinated with the earth fault element if it is there on the line. This earth fault element, which could be the backup of, normally on the 400 kV lines, we provide main 1, main 2 both as a distance protection, and there is a only backup earth fault element. So this backup earth fault overcurrent time and this time, operating time, again needs to be coordinated. If it is not coordinated, then you may have a tripping of this relay before the line protection trips or a fault in the line. So the pickup of this relay and the time delay of this relay is also important. Now, how do you do it? Now you have a choice. Either you have a definite time delay, Just like what we had a stage 2 of the backup impedance of the generator, we could keep a time delay of 1.5 seconds or 2 seconds. And the distance relay earth fault element, assuming it is up to zone 3 time, then it will be up to 1 second. So this has to, the operating time of this has to be either more than 1 second, or the backup overcurrent relay time delay, whatever is the IDMT time depending on the fault current, this has to be kept higher than that. So either you go on the safe side and delay this protection by a definite time, or you have inverse time coordination of this relay with the inverse time coordination of the backup element of the line protection. So this coordination also becomes important if you don't want to have generator tripping for an uncleared system fault. So we have seen possibility of malfunctioning of the generator relays in terms of power flow, that is low forward power, reverse power. We have seen differential relay can sometimes malfunction. We have also seen how the backup impedance relay sometimes can malfunction. Now, similarly, in some of the occurrences, as we mentioned in the first slide, we even had a excitation trip, under excitation, and either under excitation element of the protection has tripped, or it is a tripping by the excitation system itself. Now, why these conditions occur? Under excitation or loss of excitation condition basically results into the impedance as seen by the relay like this. So in this diagram, what we have done is we have drawn the capability curve of the generator, which was in MW-MVR mode. The same curve is drawn here in a RX diagram. So normally your operating point of the generator is in the quadrant 1 in this region. This is your operating region. But when the under excited operation occurs, why under excitation operation would why it will result into an under excited operation? Normally for a system over voltage, the excitation will start reducing because of the AVR action. If the system voltage starts going up, you must have seen many times generator, if the voltage regulator set point is not varied, generator will go into reactive absorption mode. When it is in reactive absorption mode, what happens? It is actually, in terms of impedance, traveling from quadrant 1 to this under excitation region, which is this side. So your operating point will start coming into this. Now, this is the limit which is shown as per the capability curve. So your generator under excitation limiter will try to limit excitation going down below this point. Now, if this setting is not functioning properly in the excitation system, then the operating point will start going further down, and it will enter the characteristic of the under excitation protection. So basically what it means is, during power system operating condition with high voltage, if the corrective action in terms of, if you have on generator transformer on load tap changer, you should then correct the voltage by action of on load tap changer, or you should change the voltage set point of the AVR in such a manner that you don't start going in the under excited region. If not, then you may enter into the operating characteristic of the under excited protection. So this is what is shown. here. Now, to be on safe side, the total loss of excitation condition is a condition sometimes which happens on account of tripping of the excitation system. Why would excitation system trip sometimes? If there is a heavy voltage dip in the grid because there is a short circuit, maybe face-to-face short circuit, and then there is a boosting of the excitation when there is a low voltage momentarily, the excitation system will do what is called field forcing. If this field forcing is not able to maintain the generator terminal voltage, then the excitation power which is normally taken from the generator terminal, this is applicable to static excitation system. The static excitation system normally which is used for the hydro stations as well as for some of the other smaller size of thermal units, gas turbines, you derive the excitation power from the generator terminal. If the voltages on the generator terminal are not maintained due to system fault, then the excitation transformer either may trip or it may momentarily start producing excitation power. And in that case, loss of excitation fault will be the indication given to the system, and generator it may result into tripping of the generator on excitation fault. Now, in such cases, what happens? Generator is remaining connected to the grid. It is synchronized, and there is a loss of excitation or excitation fault. So field breaker is open. Your turbine input is still continuing because generator has still not tripped. So actually, in such condition, the generator will go into the induction generator mode because you don't have excitation power. Generator is already connected to grid. Prime mover is already supplying the mechanical input. So generator will try to overspeed. There will be positive slip, and generator will act as the induction generator, and there will be heavy currents induced into the body of the rotor, including the damper winding as well as the end rings of the rotor. So this is a very dangerous condition as far as the generator is concerned. So the excitation characteristics are given two stages. One stage where the impedance characteristic is having a larger characteristic, and this larger characteristic with a time delay which is little higher takes care of the under excited operation due to system over voltage condition where you operate the machine in the under excited region, and it may become unstable, but this is not a total loss of excitation condition. So little more time delay, you may trip into class C mode because this is a system induced under excited operation. So you may trip in class C mode, which is just opening of the generator breaker. Idea of opening in class C mode is you can resynchronize quickly. You don't need to trip the turbine and boiler. But at the same time, as we just now discussed, if there is a total loss of excitation, then there is a machine is operating like an induction generator, and your operating point may come into this smaller circle. So in that case, you trip it instantaneously. So these are the two modes of loss of excitation conditions or under excited operation of the machine, which can be protected by two-stage under excitation protection, and they also safeguard the generator from the abnormal voltage condition in the grid. There are additional control logic some of the utilities adopt. What they do is, if the this first stage of under excitation operates, they also change your AVR to your manual mode and try to reduce, try to boost the excitation, so that you can correct the situation and bring the operating point above the safe limit of the capability curve. So, but this action is normally done by an operator in a manual mode. This will help only when the voltage is gradually shifting on higher side, and operating point of the machine in terms of reactive power is slowly coming down, where there is a time to intervene in a manual operation mode. Now, we have seen effect of faults, abnormal overloading and load throw condition in the grid, which causes into operations of the power-based relays. We have seen differential protection, we have seen loss of excitation condition, impedance protection. Now, if the system is still unstable, you have under frequency or over frequency condition. So how these under frequency and over frequency conditions can be tackled? Basically, the frequency stability is ensured by the governing action. So the first line of action is the governors. The primary response of the all the governors on all the machines which are connected to the grid will try to correct the frequency. If frequency doesn't stabilize, then you have load shedding schemes. So load shedding scheme basically ensure that there is a again generation and load balance, so that frequency fall can be arrested. You may also have a proactive action by way of rate of change of frequency, dA by dt relays. But in spite of that, if the frequency continues to fall, then there are under frequency protection on the generator. This under frequency protection on generator, depending on type of the machine, will have different settings. Thermal power plants usually have a frequency under frequency limit of 47.5. So most thermal power plants will trip at 47.5. Maybe years back, when most machines, 250 megawatt machines, used to instantaneously trip at 47.5. So what used to happen during the grid disturbances, some of the thermal stations would trip when the frequency momentary touches 47.5, and if your load shedding scheme or governing actions is not fast enough, then you will lose the generator. If you lose the generator, there will be further then deficit between generator and the load, and further frequency will collapse, and that is called then the frequency collapse phenomena. And then whole system will then get a shutdown. To ensure that your remedial actions by way of dA by dt relay, under frequency relay, or governing action gives a machine chance to correct the frequency, a small time delay is required. So normally the under frequency relay for thermal power plant, they are said to operate at 47.5 with a small time delay, which can be up to 1 second or 2 seconds also before so that you get enough chance for the generator to recover. It also gives system to recover by way of, say, islanding operation. Because if you are trying to island either a region or you are trying to even island generating stations, then you must have give sufficient time for those islanding scheme to function before the generator tripping can be executed. So it's this under frequency coordination becomes a very important from the system stability perspective. Similarly, the over frequency condition can also happen. Why will over frequency take place in spite of the governing action, etc.? Basically because of the sudden loss of load. Why would sudden loss of load occur? Maybe there is some remote tripping which disconnects the region from the major load center. So suddenly your region will see load throw-up condition. You may even have a complete isolation of the region, and the region may have then excess generation and frequency will then shoot up. So to take care of this contingency, there is a over frequency protection. There is a this is over frequency protection is generally on the electrical protection in the generator protection scheme. There is also a turbine overspeed protection, which is given as a mechanical overspeed backup protection, especially for the load throw-up condition. Sometimes this over frequency turbine overspeed protection will operate, and depending on the type of turbine. For example, for gas turbine or hydro station, this setting could be different, and for the thermal generators, this setting could be different, especially because of the load throw-up condition. The load throw-up condition also can be controlled by way of other control system on turbine and your generator. So again, if you want to get islanded and continue the operation in the safe manner, then very effective control system would be necessary to ensure that generator doesn't trip on overspeed, turbine doesn't trip on overspeed, and you may then just have a class C operation. So, or these sort of protections, you isolate the machine and again come back online. That is why the electrical over frequency protection is provided separately, whereas the mechanical overspeed protection on the turbine usually results into tripping of the turbine. So that acts as a then a backup protection. This figure is only giving the voltage and frequency, how they are coordinated. Then let us talk about over voltage protection. Why over voltage protection will interfere and trip the machine during system disturbance? As long as the machine is connected to the grid, usually a generator will not see a very dangerous over voltage protection unless entire grid voltage becomes high. Now, all generators have a capability to operate continuously at 105% of the voltage, generator terminal voltage, continuously. If the grid voltages are high and you have on-load tap changer on the generator transformer, then generator terminal voltage can be controlled by operation of OLTC. Otherwise, you can also control the terminal voltage by the AVR action by reducing the set point of the AVR, where just now what we discussed is you go into reactive power absorption mode. This over voltage protection, if it is not coordinated properly with the grid over voltage, because most of the 400 kV lines or 220 kV lines, lines will have their own over voltage protection to take care of the over voltage on account of reactive power, which is sometimes in light load condition, or when you charge the line, the over voltage situations can occur. So there is a two-stage over voltage protection on the line. This over voltage can also cause overfluxing of the transformers. We have seen in many disturbances, the over voltage is in the grid result into overfluxing of the transformer. As a backup, you also have stage 2 of over voltage protection, wherein sometimes the generator terminal voltage shoots up before synchronizing when you are building up the excitation. Normally, when you are connected to the grid, this sort of over voltage cannot come. But if you are off the bar and trying to come online, when the excitation built up becomes uncontrolled, or you are building the excitation in a manual mode, again you may exceed the safe open circuit voltage, and you can reach then higher voltage. Typically 130% with the instantaneous time delay is the setting given for such a over voltage protection. Then we talk about instability. Usually the instability in the grid results into power swings. On the lines, there is a power swing blocking or tripping scheme in the distance relays. On the generator side, you have out of step relays as well as all the pole slip relays, which will result into tripping of the generator. And as we had seen the list of trippings during system disturbance, even in the 2012 grid collapse, number of generators had tripped on pole slip because of the very heavy power swing which caused the system disturbance. Why the this power swing take place? It is normally explained by this power equation, which is between any two ends of the system, between terminal A and B, the power flow is defined by EA, EB, the impedance between the two terminals, and the sine delta. Delta is the angular difference between EA and EB. So you can see this EA and EB. If EA is your generator and EB is your, say, terminal voltage on the generator, basically this becomes then the reactance of the machine, and this delta becomes then the load angle of the generator. Now this is the basically load angle curve or the power curve, where this is the power and this is the angle, and it has a sinusoidal shape, and this is the stability limit. So maximum power transfer will take place in the generator when this angle is 90 degree, sine 90 being 1. Now when the system disturbance occurs or the fault occurs, what happens is the voltage collapses between, say, if there is a A to ground fault or A and B face-to-face fault, the voltage will collapse on those phases. When the voltage will collapse on two phases, what happens to active power? Active power will become almost zero due to voltage collapse. And of course, the reactive power will go up. The reactive power flow will depend on the reactance of the line at the point of the fault. Now, when the active power dips because of the fault, the generator turbine, which is giving the prime mover power, that is remaining constant. So your generator rotor will try to accelerate. Because mechanical power is same, electrical power has collapsed because of the fault. So machine will try to accelerate. When the fault gets removed by the protection action, then at that time the voltage will get restored and power will return back to normal power. So machine will decelerate. So this delta P between the mechanical input and electrical output basically causes the instability where the rotor angle will oscillate, it will accelerate, it will decelerate, and if it is a stable oscillation, it will settle to a new power. If not, and this is what we call power swing. This power swing is seen by all the transmission line and the system. And this swing normally will be controlled by various design features in the generator as well as the control system of the turbine. But line can trip during power swing due to this sort of oscillation. This is a typical rotor angle swing, what we saw in the equation just now. So in a normal stable mode, this angle will oscillate like this, and depending on the damping action, it will stabilize to the new value. If this doesn't stabilize, then you see this angle swinging widely, and instead of reducing, it may sustain the oscillations. So we call this unstable power swing. Now, if you visualize the same thing in R and X plane, this is how normally the swings will take place and it will stabilize. But if it doesn't stabilize like this, then it will go from this quadrant to and keep moving into this quadrant. So this may result into then operation of the pole slip or power swing protection. So when we talk about line protection tomorrow, we'll talk about how the power swing can be handled on the line side. But the out of step behavior of the generator, which is a pole slip condition, sometimes can result into tripping of the generator in the because of the pole slip. And this pole slip protection characteristic is like, again, this is an X, this is R. If you see, it is like a distance relay characteristic. This is a lenticular characteristics, and this is a generator impedance. Then there is a transformer impedance, and there is a system impedance. And this is what we call the sort of a limiting and line reactance limit. If the power swing is below this line, that means the swing center, this swing center is between the generator and generator transformer. If it is beyond this line, if the swing is taking place here, then it is in the transmission system beyond the generator transformer. So the pole slip protection normally distinguishes between stage 1 and stage 2 by way of this reactance line, and you may then isolate the machine to protect the generator from pole slip condition, even if the slip is on generator slip, and even one slip, that means if this impedance comes into this characteristic and exits at this point, usually this is called one slip, and you would like to tip the machine at this point. If it is in the grid, that is beyond in the reactance line, then you would like to coordinate this with the power swing detection and power swing blocking and tripping function on the transmission line side. So below this line you may trip in one swing, but above this line you may then allow few swings to take place, because as far as generator is concerned, it is not very close to the generator, so may not be very harmful condition as far as the generator mechanical integrity is concerned. And in that case you may allow tripping after 3 swings or 5 swings if the power swing center is outside the generator transformer. So this is how the pole slip protection is coordinated with the grid disturbance, and there is a controlled tripping of the lines and the generator to deal with this power swing condition. The new generator protection relays, they have now different characteristics. It can now detect the change in impedance by dz by dt or dx by dt, that means rate of change of reactance and rate of change of resistance. So as your swing reactance will take place, power swing will take place, the reactance change is tracked, and whether it's a stable swing or unstable swing, there is a logic based on the rate of change as well as the directional in which it is going from right hand side to left hand side in the XR plane. According to that, it will distinguish whether it's a faulty condition or it's a power swing condition, and gives you much better discrimination of tripping. Now we have discussed various protection scheme which can mal-operate, and one of the scheme which also mal-operates or sometimes fails to operate is the breaker failure scheme. The scheme may fail to isolate a fault if generator breaker doesn't trip for some reason, or sometimes what happens is the generator breaker opens, but it may result into flashover of the generator pole inside the interrupter. So this may result into a stuck breaker condition. Either stuck breaker is on account of pole getting stuck after receiving of the trip command, or it is a plain and simple flashover of the generator pole after the tripping command has been issued. In either cases, there is a mechanism to isolate the entire adjacent circuit. The adjacent circuit, normally what it means is, if the breaker is stuck or breaker has opened but pole has flashed over, in that case you isolate that breaker by tripping all the adjacent breaker connected to that bus bar. So normally you initiate a bus bar trip. This is the simple logic of the breaker failure protection, or also called local breaker backup protection. This local breaker backup protection logic, which basically isolates the faulty breaker or a flashover breaker, is supervised by the overcurrent element. That means the trip signal has come from one of the protection, but the current is still continuing. This current may continue either due to fault, or it is due to flashover of the breaker pole inside. If this current element operates, then it will cause LBBU to initiate the bus bar trip. But sometimes there are faults where there is not enough current. For example, the reverse power relay or Buchholz relay may not result into enough current. So this element may not operate. In that case, it is also a practice to bypass this current element by a breaker contact logic. And this also then can initiate the trip. Now, while this is good as far as the isolation of the fault is concerned, but it can also result into some malfunction because this overcurrent element remains normally in the operated mode, either on the load current itself or during the system disturb condition. So any inadvertent signal either coming from the relay or coming from the breaker contact in the field due to a terminal flasher or something like that, it can also cause the unwanted operation of the LPB relay. So these are all the various uh, uh, conditions where we see the protection system responding to that. One more condition which I would like to mention here is open generator flashover protection. Many times, especially it has been experienced in hydro stations, which are used for frequent start and stop sometimes, depending on the time of the day, etc. The generators are kept open with isolators lined up. In that situation, again, sometimes the flasher of the breaker pole can result into similar condition what we discussed, or there could also inadvertent closing of the generator breaker while the machine is not energized. So this is called dead machine protection. That means machine which is at even standstill or machine which is not energized by excitation, suddenly the breaker on HT side provides the grid input to the dead machine. So there is a protection called, there is a separate protection which is available, which is called dead machine protection, which is used then also to isolate the machine from the grid by operating the bus fault protection tip logic. This we also will go into transformer and transmission line protection, but I think considering the time constraint for today, we will cover this transformer protection tomorrow along with the line and bus fault protection. So at this point, I will stop here and we'll take some questions now. Yeah, so over to our moderator.
Thank you so much, sir, for your excellent presentation. Now we start the question and answer session. So participants can unmute themselves to ask question to Bhatki sir. Any question?
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, sir, I had one question. Actually, can generator pulse protection maloperation be minimized by any technique due to system transients?
Yes, the chances of maloperation of pole slip basically is reduced because with coordination between the line protection for power swing detection and out of step protection. I will talk about it tomorrow. It's now after 2012 grid collapse, it is recommended that out of step protection should also be provided on the line. This will protect the generators to become out of step and pole slip condition to happen. So the one is between coordination between the uh, out of step condition in the grid versus the out of step protection on the generator side. Second is the pole slip protection relay in the modern numerical relay has changed its operating principle from the plain impedance based to with a blinder. As I mentioned quickly, now it is operating on dx by dt and dr by dt. So these are the new type of protection schemes to detect and distinguish between the stable swings and unstable swings. So some of these modern protections are better, having better sensitivity, which can avoid the undesirable operation.
Sir, I have one more question. how
Yeah.
the LVB time of transmission lines is coordinated with the auto reclosing of the lines, single phase auto reclosing.
The LBB protection, which is 200 millisecond time delay, and the date time of the auto recloser scheme is sufficient to distinguish an auto recloser can take place. So there is a inherent time coordination between LBB operation. LBB, if the protection operates and a breaker is stuck, then if the breaker
One
is
question
stuck,
from my side.
I'm
Yeah.
completing the previous question. So you can block the auto recloser easily. So when LBB operation takes place, you should block the auto recloser.
One question from my side. Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. What is the percentage unbalance of voltage is permitted when the generators are connected to the?
Unbalance in phases.
What is the percent unbalance allowed for the generators when it is connected to the grid system?
The percentage unbalance is basically the negative sequence protection. Hello.
Hello. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, negative sequence protection generally takes care of the unbalance in current, and usually for 10% unbalance, normally generators can operate continuously.
Okay. So 10% voltage variation unbalance
No,
generators are designed.
not voltage. This unbalance protection on generator is on current unbalance, not voltage unbalance.
No, sir. My question is, if the grid voltage variation is there between the line voltages, what is the maximum percentage unbalance it can be allowed?
Voltage unbalance per se doesn't cause any problem to the generator, so there is no really danger on that. Usually, just a monitoring on your CNI system or SCADA system is sufficient to take care of any corrective action. Usually, such a situation arises only when there is a uncleared high impedance fault on the generator. Normally, otherwise, the voltages are normally well within 1% of the rated voltage in the high voltage grid. Unlike when there are loads on single phase basis, which happen in the distribution system. At the EHV level, such an unbalance more than 1% is normally not seen. And if there is a fault, then obviously the current based protection will be much more effective than the voltage based protection.
Sir, one question from me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir,
Which protection, low impedance or high impedance differential? Which protection is having better stability against through faults?
Stability wise, strictly going by the you can say principle of operation, high impedance protection naturally gives more better stability, because by way of stabilizing resistor, you can ensure that it doesn't maloperate. But it also puts a very high demand on the specification of the current transformers, and so that current transformers do not saturate. So very high knee point requirement, because it's a voltage based relay basically in the differential circuit. So though theoretically high impedance protection provide better stability, because of the difficulty in arranging the required CTC with a magnetizing characteristic, low impedance is now a preferred mode, and with a advantage that even the ratio matching and other things can be easily be done in the modern relay. So preferred one is low impedance with a percentage bias characteristic rather than high impedance.
Thank you, sir.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, myself Pawan Yadav from Adani Power Rajasthan Limited. We have one question that our power transformer means generator transformer of our units, both the units, are suddenly getting abnormal sounds. Means high noise is observing from since last 1 month. So, what could be the reason, or any we can check with the relays? Any parameter you suggest? What kind of parameter we have to ensure to overcome this problem? This is a problem we face first time in the system. Thank you.
You have to observe which are the system parameters at that particular time when this noise takes place. Some see there are 2-3 types of conditions which causes noise to go higher. One is when it is feeding the system fault. If there is an abnormal system condition and generator is feeding that abnormal condition, then the humming will go up on the transformer. Sometimes if there is a short circuit type of condition which is uncleared for a long time, you will get a very heavy sound, but that will not last for a very long time. It will be ultimately be cleared in few seconds by some protection. Other causes could be due to the problem in the core itself, which gets accentuated for a typical frequency condition. So some sort of say electromechanical phenomena, you'll have to correlate whether it happens at particular frequency. So magnetization of the transformer and magnetization of the rest of the circuit in terms of capacitance, etc. So there could be some resonance type of condition occurring between the reactance of the transformer, that is a magnetizing impedance of the transformer, and the capacitive element of the grid. So you have to keep watch on the voltage and frequency and see at whether it happens at a particular frequency or voltage.
So no, it's happen in surrounding power station also. Means all over the region. Only increasing sound in observing in generator transformer only. We have a station transformer in same grid, same voltage level. But in station transformer there is no humming sound. But in only generator transformer we are observing, and nearby our other thermal plant also.
So that's why I said the most likely reason is the magnetizing of the generator transformer and the other system parameters like capacitance, possibility of some resonant phenomena. But it will always be happening at particular frequency. So you'll have to still keep noting down the frequency, voltage, and power flow, and maybe draw conclusion based on the trend which you can keep monitoring.
Sir, I have one question.
Yeah.
For in one of the idle generating station, when they have initiated the generator trip command, there was a pole discrepancy. The native sequence currents flown, and though the LBB condition was initiated, busbar could not give the trip condition. In such situation, is the generator failure is only solution, or you suggest some other remedies?
Now, as I understand, you had a breaker pole failure, you said.
Yes, yes.
So, what it mean? Was it a flashover inside the breaker pole or outside?
No, it is a normal shutdown practice. Out of 3 poles, 2 poles only opened, 1 pole has not opened.
Okay, so one pole remained connected to the grid.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then you said LBBU protection failed to trip.
Yeah, it LBB is supposed to give the trip signal
Yes.
to the busbar trip bus, but it has
Yeah.
not extended due to some reason. So then in that case, only generator is failing, which is a costly equipment failure is happening. What is the solution you suggest, sir?
Solution is, as I mentioned in my last few slides, you can have this dead machine protection, which is actually also have three elements. So any one pole remaining closed and the trip command of the generator is already there, then in that case it will operate. If that doesn't, if the generator is not really tripped, but the only single pole is remain connected to the grid, then the unbalanced protection normally should have cleared the fault and tripped the machine.
Breaker itself
But
got stuck up. There is a
so
question
that
of
itself, so in this case, that itself is a stuck up. But in such situation, manual trip is the only solution. So manually, you will have to either result into bus bar to all breakers to be opened. I don't know whether you have such a emergency trip provision where you can clear the bus bar with a single switch. Otherwise, you'll have to open all the breaker manually.
I think no generating stations. We have a single command where you can trip all the. Either it has to initiate only through bus bar protection.
Okay. Okay. In that case, you'll have to open the isolated manually by open command. Because I remember in one of the hydro stations, some people were telling me that they tried to open the breaker mechanically. So
Sir, by the time they reach to the switchyard, it will take 3 to 4 minutes. By
Yes,
the time rotor gets heated, damper winding getting damaged.
Exactly. So that
That
is
may
the
not be a
reason.
real solution, sir.
So basically, then you will have to give a sort of a electrical trip to all the outgoing circuit. Though this one particular breaker will remain stuck, but at least other circuits will get opened and machine can be tripped by hand. Did you get the?
Yeah, sir. But machine tripping means when both pole got stuck up, there
Yeah,
is
but
only
so
bus bar only should act there.
you isolate all the outgoing lines manually, and machine has to be tripped by hand in that case because other protection operation will not operate in this case because they have even LBVU has failed to operate. So you have to do hand tripping of the generator and turbine and open all the outgoing lines.
Hello? Sir, my question is, hello?
And save,
Yeah.
reverse zone protection of the lines can act for and clear the lines in the case of the bus fault really fails to operate due to the man operation that will be declared. Can in this situation to isolate the fault, all the lines can trip in reverse zone protection because the fault was in the bus bar. There is a fault because the fault was not cleared with the breaker. The fault is there. Two poles have open, one is not opening. So the reverse zone protection can of the lines can trip and save save. Otherwise, there is no electrical protection which can operate.
That depends on the level of the fault. The breaker which is stuck, if it is a flashover, then the reverse protection will definitely help because it's like a bus fault condition and isolate the lines. But depends on the stuck breaker condition whether it is really resulting into fault condition or it is just mechanically stuck with the current flow may not be of the very high order. So it's not a definite. That's why I suggested that all outgoing lines you have to, because it's not a very severe fault condition. It's a either breaker pole mechanically stuck, so not able to clear the fault after this tripping. But even the remote reverse zone or even the remote end tripping, both possibilities are also existing. Remote end tripping also can happen. But in this particular case, if the remote tripping also has not occurred, which is in zone 2, if the fault current is heavy enough in the stuck pole, then even the reverse the forward zone at the remote end should have operated.
Yeah, once the fault is there, it will operate on the.
Yeah,
but
correct.
Till the fault takes place in the generator,
you have to open it, man. That's why
so
I said you have to open it manually only. There is no other way, no.
Can we suggest some double bus bar scheme to ensure the redundancy?
For 220 kV and above, the protection guidelines, they do suggest, depending on the criticality, you can go for redundant bus fault schemes. And this
220 kV and all, it is very costly affair, but we fully accept for major generating stations where such a criticality is there, you can
No, now-
ensure the redundancy.
no, nowadays you have a distributed numerical bus fault scheme. So it's not a very costly scheme because you can connect the bus bar measurement element in the existing protection core of the current transformer only. You don't need to have a separate city arrangement. So you should go for decentralized bus fault scheme, which is not very costly.
Sir, my question is, what is the upper limit of over frequency, sir? You have told me that lower frequency limit is 47.5. So upper frequency limit is?
Normally it is about 52 hertz. 52 hertz. So, but depends. For gas turbine it is different. For steam turbine it is different, and for hydro turbines it is different.
Sir, why?
My question.
Sir, why should we?
Hello.
So,
Yeah.
sir, I have a
Here
question.
is SGTPS unit 1 is left with backup impedance stage 1 and stage 2. But backup impedance stage 1 and is out. So what precaution we have to take in switchyard line protection?
Basically, if the backup protection is out for some reason on the generator, do you have voltage restraint overcurrent relay as a main to? Do you have two groups of protection on generator, or there is only one group?
Sir, pardon?
Your generator protection, there are it is a single group or it's a two groups of protection?
Single
Like
group.
single group. Okay. In that case, you can just see whether you can provide a backup overcurrent protection or fault on the generator transformer side to take care of the grid side. And as far as the generator side is concerned, you already have enough other protection for phase 2 earth fault, like a stator earth fault protection, etc. So don't have to worry on the generator side because other protections are there. Only on the HT side, you sensitize the neutral overcurrent on the transformer output.
Sir, one question I have, sir, for 400 kV connectivity, where we have the auto reclosure system. During single phase auto reclosing, we have a dead time of 1 second.
Yes.
During that time, can the generators absorb this unbalancing system?
Again, it depends on how many generators are in parallel.
Four generators are in,
Normally,
four generators of 270 megawatts. They are in parallel.
two generators.
Four generators, sir.
4 generators. So normally if the 4 generators are there, our experience of earlier studies is the risk is less. So auto reclosure from generating station side can be done if stability perspective, the delay is not very critical. In that case, it is better to do auto reclosure at the remote end and do the live line closure at the generating station end.
Sir, that is a normal practice, sir. General.
Yes. Yes, on generating station that is normally permitted and normally practiced where but it delays the auto reclosure. So stability wise and the fall critical clearance angle, critical clearance time, if it is not a issue, then you can go for this live line charging via remote and auto reclosing. But if you want to go for faster reclosure from the generating station is, I think it can still be permitted because 4 generators are in parallel. Though, so the whatever is the impact gets shared by the 4.
Sir, in southern region, it is a practice.
So risk is lesser.
Sir, my submission. Sir, in southern region, the practice is first to close at the grid end. Once the line healthiness is ensured, after a dead time of 1.5 seconds, the breaker will close at the remote generating station end. So
Yeah.
now
So that,
during the dead time of 1 second, whether the generators can handle this unbalancing current, or is there any effect on the generators?
no, that as far as the unbalanced effect is concerned, that's not a much of a issue for 1 second, because again you will have this a number of lines which will be sharing this unbalance. Main issue is actually the stress which comes on the turbine shaft because of the acceleration of power which is seen by the rotor. As I was explaining during that power and delta diagram, when the short circuit is there, you have acceleration of the machine because turbine input is there. So there is a stress on the mechanical coupling of the generator shaft. This electromechanical stress on the turbine and generator shaft uh, risk is high if you have got only 1 or 2 machines in service and you need to feed fault very close to the generator, and you auto reclose also. So to avoid that, minimize that risk, normally then remote end closure is done, and then you do live line, because then you are not taking a risk of live line getting faulty once again. So generally, if there are 4 machines in service, in practice we allow
In the control of the system operator, because
your voice is interrupted.
Sir, I have a question. Sir, why there is an offset in loss of excitation? Why there is an offset in loss of excitation?
The offset is just because at the near zero in the RX diagram, the impedance plane, because of in various power swing condition, without the risk of under excitation, momentary there is a possibility of impedance passing through that region, so that offset is kept. This is just to avoid maloperation in a heavy swing condition.
So I have one question, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, you have mentioned the Pmax is equal to EA into EV by X sin 90.
Yeah.
And active power will become 0 when the voltage collapse and reactive power shoot off.
Yes.
So that my question is, for a particular generator, I have seen in the software they put the different rotor angle range. So what is the criteria to fix the rotor angle range, sir?
The rotor angle is basically the same stability criteria. As they said, 90 is the maximum, but beyond 90 degree, you go into unstable region. Power the permitted power flow will start coming down, and machine will become unstable. So normally it is safe to operate the machine with a margin. So generally you don't allow the angle to exceed say 70 degrees or something. So the load angle controller in the excitation system, you fix the setting around 70 degrees so that you are safe, you have safe margin for stability of the machine.
Sir,
yes,
I have seen during the commissioning the VHL machine in the excitation system, they have put D actual value in the excitation software near to D 80 degree, and for that the particular machines was swinging and heavy disturbance was there. And when the design engineer came and they fixed the value D70, D actual is equal to 70 degree. So
yes.
it is the value of a criteria of the field, or they have fixed that this range should be fixed up, or other criteria is also there, sir.
The 70 degree is the maximum permitted angle between the internal EMF and the terminal voltage. So in case of EA and EB, what we say in the equation, EA is the EMF at an we can say which is a no load voltage, and EB is a terminal voltage in the loaded condition. The angle between EF and ET, that is terminal voltage, is angle delta. This delta angle is kept to the same value of 70 degrees. So it is the excitation system which is varied to keep that angle within 70.
Sir, another questions for the active power. I have seen in the SCADA, they have put the value of the gain of turbine, and time to time they have changed if there is a disturbance in the machines. So you have given one graph. There's one mechanical power shoot up that machine try to cope up with the disturbance, and the electrical power is deteriorated. At that particular angle, the delta D actual value as the critical value, but what is the functions of the turbine gain, sir?
Turbine gain basically is like a, I would say, sensitivity. So sometimes you get a very highly sensitive control loop, which can result into disturbance and can create a problem. So you reduce the gain so that it's like a, in a governing system you have a dead band, so that for a very fast frequency changes the governor will not react. It is something similar. It's like a dead band. You should not have too much reaction from the power controller. So you reduce the gain so that this is a differential amplifier. So the difference is kept to the minimum. Too much control action, hyper responsive control action will not happen.
Okay, sir. Sir, another the real problem we are facing that still now it is not solved since 5 years. One transformer we have 5 MVA transformer, and 132 kV side there is REF relay is there, and outgoing 6 feeder is there, sir. And I have seen so many times the outgoing feeder operate in the overcurrent stage 2, and that time the REF operated in the 5 MVA transformer, and 5 MVA transformer will be tripped, but it should not be. So what we will do, sir?
Basically, as I was explaining for we'll have a look at this REF protection. But REF, if you are using in a high impedance mode, you are using high impedance mode, or it is a low impedance with a percentage bias, because both the choices are there if you are having a numerical REF. So you will have to increase the setting of the differential protection in that case. REF,
sir,
that voltage setting you have to increase. Yeah.
Sir, we have the static value, a static relay, 132 side. But in the 11 kV outgoing side, there is a numerical relay.
Yeah.
So how can I? So there is, I don't know. Okay, there is a possibility.
No, this is the high impedance differential circuit which I was mentioning. Now this is the operating element which sometimes maloperates, as I was mentioning, for some mismatch between these two sides. Now for any outgoing feeder fault, if this is malfunctioning, of course you can check the responses of the respective current transformer, if they, in terms of magnetization, current, etc., whether there are any mismatches. But for the time being, you can increase the voltage setting of this element.
Sir, it is with regard to this problem, they need to check the fault level, particularly a high impedance scheme. While calculating the knee point voltage, they need to check at regular interval, maybe every 2 years or 3 years, they need to check what is the fault level and corresponding knee point voltage in the secondary circuits, voltage development. So they may have to fine tune the stabilizer.
But I think we can conclude this question and answer session.
So wait, madam, please. Madam, please wait.
Can be asked
Let me, madam.
Madam, please wait.
Asking the question.
Madam, please. Madam, please wait, madam.
Wait, madam, wait. How you can interrupt, madam?
Questions one by
one. Wait, madam. So this should be finished, madam.
We'll finish this question. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sir. My submission to the forum is See, once you are using high impedance scheme, you need to check what is the value of stabilizing resistor at regular interval. Means if any network connectivity change is there, it will influence. And if you are not revising the stabilizing resistor, there is a possibility of
Yes.
relay operation for through fault.
Correct.
That is not in the case of your low impedance protection.
Right. You are right.
Thank you.
Sir.
Yes.
So whatever you suggest, that is very speed up. We cannot guess, catch up it, sir. Please suggest 2 and 3 points that we can check it.
So one
points,
is check the magnetizing characteristic of both the sides. These two.
Okay, magnetizing current. Wait, sir. I am writing down, sir.
See what is the knee point voltage coming on this side. Second, if the fault level wise, if it is an increase, then you will have to also see the calculate the voltage which is getting developed across this. Sometimes you put a second cable in parallel to this cable. This secondary cable, you can either increase the cross section or put one more cable in parallel so that this resistance can be reduced. So the voltage developed across this relay can also will get minimized. So that is the second action which you can take. And third is the setting of this stabilizing resistor can be changed. So all the three possibilities you can. So check the loop resistance. If the loop resistance for the given fault level, if it is resistance is high, you will try to reduce this loop resistance by putting higher cross section cable and then increase the setting to some extent. By increasing the setting here, you are slightly reducing the sensitivity of the protection scheme, but at least it will not maloperate.
90% cases, 90% cases.
Sir, wait. Sir.
Yes.
Sir, shall I contact after the training personally, sir?
Yeah, you can always contact. You can contact CBIP also. They will pass on the question to me, or you can get the email address. Tomorrow I will give my email address. You can directly contact me also.
Okay, sir. Okay.
So, Shika, we can then close for today.
Yes, sir, of course, if you allow, yes.
Yeah.
So we conclude this session, question and answer session. So I thank you, Patki Saab, for today's sessions, and I would like to thank all the participants for joining us today, and I hope to see you all tomorrow at 3 p.m. for day 2 session. Thank you once again, and kindly take care and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.